All right, Kwesi, riskiest part of the presentation. What is it?
Riskiest part is when I let someone else talk. If I, uh, at the
That's
moment
so
when I'm
true.
asking them for questions, um,
Yeah.
no matter what age, right? If I speak to students or I speak to adults, you never know what you're going to get. So a Q&A can be the total riskiest part of your presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we mitigate that risk? What are some of the strategies you do as a keynoter? What are some things we teach our clients? And I'll talk about some of the things I do.
Yeah, well, what I do in my keynotes is the same thing I teach my clients. First off, you don't want your audience having the last word, right? So you don't want to end with the Q&A. So I won't have Q&A after everything I have to say. I won't end my speech and say, now let's open up for questions and then just do questions and then have that be the last thoughts in the audience's minds. So I like to frame it. So I will say,
Can
we're
I
gonna,
talk about that for 1 second? Can I just
yeah,
jump
yeah,
in
for
on
sure,
that
for
thought?
sure. Go
Okay.
ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So again, this goes back to old paradigm is Q&A comes at the end. Absolutely not. New paradigm, and Kwesi's going to get into some places where you can put your questions. New paradigm is your words are the last words. And here's why. I want you to imagine this. I call this, if you end with Q&A, you are very likely going to experience what I call the Foosh factor.
Foosh
Okay.
Factor.
Here's the Foosh factor. So the Foosh factor, Kwesi, is you've given, let's say you've given a great presentation, right? People are with you, everything, you make your last point, and then you say, okay, I'm going to open up for Q&A. What questions do you have? And whoosh, all of the energy goes out of the room, right? And you can feel it. And you've been in those audiences. I know I have. And it goes out of the room because someone's going to ask. It's going to be that guy who thinks they're smarter than you, who's going to ask a question to try to trip you up, or maybe some woman who really wants very personal advice. And now's not the time for that, right? Or someone who just wants to hear themselves talk. All the energy goes out of the room. And now who is the audience annoyed with? You.
You. Yeah. For a
And then
lot of
that's the last thing they're going to remember.
Mhm.
And so there's this thing called the primacy and recency effect. People remember what they heard first and last. That last impression is really going to go with them. So you have to have your words ringing in their ears, and you have to have total control of how the end of the presentation goes. So that's
Yeah.
not with Q&A. So what do we do
No.
instead, Kwesi?
Well, we want to frame it too, right? So, what I like to do in my keynotes, and I tell people that you want to be in control of that Q&A session, even though you're letting some of that control go by letting your audience do some of the talking. So,
Yeah.
if I have a certain amount of time for my speech, I will normally say something like, "We're going to open up for 5 minutes for questions, and then I'm going to close." Or and then I'm going to end, or then I'm going to wrap up. And I normally
Yes.
have something that I'm going to have that's inspirational, that's going to get them thinking about me at the end. And so that
Yes.
they know, okay, they have a certain amount of time, and then it's going to be something that I'm going to leave you with. And so
Yes.
you won't get that foosh. I will have that feeling that they're focused on me at the end and they feel good about the presentation at the end. And so even if there's a person in the audience that might ask a weird question, and we can talk about how to handle those,
Yeah.
that's not the last thing the audience hears, right? So how do you
Right.
handle those types of questions? Like if a person asks a question that's gonna require too long of an answer, or if it's way off base.
Yeah. All right. So what I do in that scenario is I will generally say, let's say it's like it's too complicated or too long and it's more personal, right? Like we don't have time for that. I will generally say, Kwesi, well, I don't know your name typically, but I'll say like, thank you for that question. It's a really good question. And I want to give the question the time that it actually deserves. We
Oh,
unfortunately don't have that in this environment, but I'm going to be here afterwards. Just I'll be standing right over there. Come over and chat with me. Or let's say it's on a virtual. I'll say just shoot me an email, and I'm happy to email you back or shoot you a video answering the question.
I like that you said I want to give that the time it deserves because
Yeah,
it's edifying them, making them feel
exactly.
important. And
Yes.
what about a question that has nothing to do, has no relevancy, and
Yeah.
makes people in the audience go, okay, what is that? Why is he asking that question?
I'll do a similar thing. I'll be like, you know what? That's interesting. I haven't thought about it that way. Why don't you and I chat offline? Like I'll be around, I'll be at the cocktail party, I'll be over here afterwards. Just come over and we can chat about that. I just keep deflecting them till afterwards. And the thing is, if someone asks a question that is like maybe rude or weird or off topic, and you nicely and with respect deflect them, like the audience also knows it's an odd question. They're going to be relieved that you don't answer it, and they're going to be relieved that you treated the person with respect. So I think that's the thing that I like to do. So even like, let's say my heckler, right? I talked in another previous video about my heckler last week. Let's say that guy asked like a heckling question. I think I would say, oh, that's an interesting comment. I think that's something for you and I to discuss privately. I will be at your cocktail hour after the presentation. I'm happy to chat with you about that.
Mm.
And then I'm moving on. I'm moving on. And here, okay, here's a trick that I learned years ago. And this will make the difference between you having total control of the audience or not. So in a scenario like that, let's say someone asks you a question that and you know that they might go, oh, but wait, like they don't want to accept your answer. Don't look at them for permission. So let's say you asked me something, Kwesi, that it's not appropriate for me to answer or even to discuss in our presentation, right? And I said to you, oh, that's an interesting thought. That's an interesting question. It's beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, but I'm happy to talk with you at the cocktail hour. So just meet me at the cocktail hour. Okay, so I was talking about so that I don't wait for you to say, okay. And
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
most speakers do. Most speakers are looking for agreement from that person. Do not look at agree for agreement. I just literally turn my gaze and I start quickly speaking to someone else or about something else. I don't give them any room to dispute me or agree with me or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's the mistake. That's the magic moment.
I like that. I like that. So
Hmm.
don't give them that chance. You move on. And I like what you did with your hand that you actually motion to the next person because it gives them
Exact.
that visual cue. We're not on you anymore, right?
We're not on you. And I'll move my head, my body, my hand. I will do something so that it's clear. I'm not like facing this direction any longer. So we have moved on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, and with Q&A, sometimes a little thing that I also do is I repeat the question. So sometimes I'll be in a big audience and the people on
Yes.
the left side of the room don't hear the question. So I will repeat the question. I'll say, John asked, just so you know, John asked this,
That's
this,
great.
this, and then I answer it because I've had times where I've spoken and I've answered a question and I could tell the person over here on this side of the room didn't even hear the question. So they don't know why I'm
I've
responding
totally
on
done
this
that.
side. And so
I've
now I
totally done
repeat
that.
that question. Um, Sometimes clients will ask me, and this will be good for you to answer, what how do you frame it with the organizer if they say, can we have a Q&A in the session?
Oh, yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
deal with that conversation so that you make sure it's framed in the right place in your keynote?
Okay, this is great. And this is a mistake that I made early on as a speaker. So I was delivering a presentation. I was in Minneapolis, a group of about 150 entrepreneurs. And I knew that and he asked for a Q&A. Okay, great. Sure. I'm happy to do that. But I don't do a Q&A like you don't do a Q&A at the end. But I didn't tell him that. So I had a half hour, I think I had like 40 minutes for the speech. So about one of the strategies you can use for a Q&A is I like to, if I have time for Q&A, I don't always. So like my last talk, there were no time for questions. So I told them up front, I'm going to be at your cocktail hour, write down anything you have and we'll talk about it then. But if I have time, I like to answer the questions after each point about that specific point. That's
Mm,
where I like to do it. So I didn't tell him that that was my strategy. So about 15 minutes into the presentation, I started asking for questions. And I could tell the organizer was very uneasy. Like I could see he's sort of motioning to me, he's looking at me, he's sort of waving, and I'm thinking, what is going on? And I finally realized he thought I was at the end of the speech.
oh, shoot. Oh, gosh.
Yes, he thought I was, and he was basically saying like, you have so much more time left. Like he literally thought like 15 minutes in, I was at the end of the speech. So at that point, I actually stopped and I was like, okay, I got to stop for a minute. Rick, I'm sorry. You think I'm at the end of the speech? This is, don't worry, I'm not. I integrate my Q&A, and it's great because I'm a speaking coach. I was actually able to teach that lesson from the stage.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
tell your organizer up front, hey, I am going to build in Q&A, but I don't do it like most people do it. I integrate it throughout, or I have a certain period of time before I close, but it's not the closing.
Mm,
And then if they ask you, well, why? We always do it at the end, share this video with them, or just take what we said and tell them. You don't want and make it about the audience. You don't want your audience to experience the Foosh factor. You want your audience excited, motivated on a high. And the way that's going to happen is when I end the presentation, not someone's question ends the presentation.
Absolutely. So make sure you save this video. When you're going to do Q&A, make sure you're ready for it, save it, and use it for your next presentation. You'll separate yourself from all the speakers out there.
All right, make it a crazy day. We'll see you in our next video.